Hello everyone, and welcome to the very first episode of It Doesn't Really Matter, but It Does. I'm David Craig, and I'll be chatting with my fabulous first guest very soon. This is basically all about all of the things that you love doing from being a child up to present day. And it could be anything at all. It could be games that you played, scrapes you got into with your friends, favourite toys, favourite music, books, TV, films, anything at all. Anything that people loved as they were growing up to now. And how things that you've loved have developed and changed as you've experienced life. So that, in essence, is basically what this podcast is going to be about. So with no further waffle from me, I'm privileged and absolutely over the moon to announce my very first guest. He's an actor. This is a long list, by the way. It'll take ages. He's an actor, comedian, presenter, writer, impressionist, an artist, and a cartoonist, which are slightly different. And he's a really, really lovely, lovely bloke. It's Alfie Joey.
Hey,
hello.
Nice to meet you, Davey.
And that's time up just describing all the things that you How are you doing?
I'm very good. I listened to another podcast, Gilbert Gottfried's Great Colossal podcast. Very funny.
Right.
And it's all about films and stuff. But they have they usually have a Hollywood guest or something, but they list every single film they've ever made.
Really?
And that takes up half the podcast. It's very funny. So it's bizarre. My list nowhere near as long as any of theirs.
They don't want someone like Samuel L. Jackson on or something. It'll take off an hour just to list.
Exactly. They probably had them on.
I know. But like I said, Alfie, basically, I listed all of those things that you're known for. Some people may know you for some more than others, but the way I see it, you're like, for me personally, I've done a lot of things in my life, and the master of none. You're the opposite. All the things that you've done, you've been a success in, and they've been brilliant. But what I want to talk about is the things that you've loved, starting from when you were very young, that have got you to be who you are now, and that kind of thing, basically. So if it's okay with you, I'll just let you talk, and we'll just have a conversation and see how things go. So
yeah,
little Alfie, where did you grow up, and what sort of things did you love doing?
Well, I will disagree with you straight away, because I think I've underachieved, and I know lots of other people who I started out comedy with. There's some of them ended up on telly, and they would say to me, you're not very ambitious, are you? We are, and they were probably right. I'm just happy with me lot, because lots of the things that we're going to talk about now that I did and loved doing when I was little, I ended up carry on doing, and they are dreams come true, and they are. I taped myself on cassette pretending to be on the radio. I didn't think that would ever turn into a real radio show. I used to do impressions in school. I ended up on Britain's Got Talent, and I ended up doing stand-up comedy. I would always get up and do a turn in school, and draw. I used to draw around my grandma's all the time, and I never thought that would end up with me drawing children's books. So I say I'm the example of what to do if you're not that good at things. Just plod along. You never know where they'll end up taking you.
Well, I beg to differ, because I think all the stuff that you've done, I mean, the first thing I remember, we'll not go on and on about it too much, but the first thing I saw you were at the Stand Comedy Club, and you were singing, and you would croon. And I thought it was brilliant, but it was your personality as well, and you'd chat about various things. And then around the same time, I discovered Ideal. I was late to the game, so I saw you in Ideal, and I was, is that Alfie? Is that the same? Because you were so brilliant in it, and I just that's never Alfie, because the character that you played is almost the total opposite to yourself.
Well, very different. And you know what? I've very rarely got recognised for being an ideal. And we did it for seven seasons, as they say in American TV terms. But I think one of the only times I've been properly recognised was when I had my son and I was in Gateshead Baths. And one of the lifeguards said, "Can I ask you a question?" And I'm there in the baths, you know, holding me baby son up. And he went, "You weren't in the sitcom Ideal, were you?" Because yeah, I always wear glasses when I'm on stage, and in real life I wear glasses, and I didn't wear glasses in Ideal, so I just didn't get recognised much. In the baths, I didn't have my glasses on.
No, it was great. But I mean, then obviously discovering all of these things. So when you were little, then can you remember first sort of memories, stuff that you really, really loved doing? You mentioned drawing and things like that, and doing the bits and bobs of daft things at school. But let's get into it and see what.
The very first thing, I suppose, your memory plays tricks, and you think, "Is this what I can remember, or what my relatives passed on?" My mum and dad ran the social club, ran Thornley Workmen's Club, and before I can remember, but relatives told me, "Oh, when you were two, the first thing you could do was go on stage and sing Tom Jones." And because I grew up in the club, and they had big names used to come to play Thornley Club. It was a big club; it's still there. And they used to have, you know, Kelly Marie, "My head is in a spin, my feet can't touch ground." All these turns. Used to do the clubs at Paul Daniels, I think, played there. So I grew up, my first couple of years were in that club.
That was normal then? That was normal to you?
Yes. And my uncle was the concert secretary. My uncle Stevie was a right character. He was the funniest person I can remember from my childhood. My dad was really funny, but my uncle Stevie was crazy. And my uncle Stevie was double jointed, and his body used to contort into weird positions. And if the turn was late that he'd booked, he used to go on stage and with a broom shank, and to music, he would like angle himself in and out of this broom shank. Very odd. But so I grew up loving show business. I grew up, and my dad would always, you know, I'd watch Opportunity Knocks with him, and we'd watch all the different styles of entertainment and brilliant films. My dad was like a DVD commentary. He would just go, "He's a good actor. He was in that film," or "She's brilliant. Look at this." And he would talk me through what was good and what wasn't in show business. And I did impressions before I knew I could do impressions. So I was doing Tom Jones and stuff like that. And as I grew up, I had people from the village who I didn't know knew me, and they go, "Hey, look, it's Alfie." My dad was Alfie. And they would say, "Hey, you were a right mate, yeah, would you?" And they used to, I was known as an impressionist before I even knew I was doing impressions.
What you were doing, yeah. Because it was just normal to you, I suppose.
Yeah. Always did voices, always did any talent show that came up at school. I would just go, "Yep, I'll be in that." And I would do Laurel and Hardy, I would do Prime Ministers or whatever, you know, I was always trying to do an act.
Yeah. So what sort of, I mean, with friends and stuff like that, what sort of, obviously you must have done that for your mates, and you must have made friends having a good laugh doing that sort of stuff. But what, you know, like, I mean, I remember, you know, mostly playing football, and there was a dean. We used to go down the dean, and I was talking about it last night where with my wife Sarah, and saying that a lot of the games used to go on, and then they would end up where somebody would do something and break them up, or somebody might not be as good, and then you'd end up doing something else that was suggested by that person. What sort of things would you have suggested to have done amongst your friends? What would have been your choice of games and things?
Well, yes, that's a great observation. One thing, this is a good question. Deans, you had a dean, we had a dean, and we had a big dean and a little dean, and there's deans all over the northeast. Are deans a northeast thing? I don't think deans travel around the country. They're all over the northeast. Castle
we're not talking about like Dean Martin or somebody like that. It's just for people who might be, you know, We're talking
Cops
about
of woods.
little streams, basically, aren't they? And
Exactly,
yeah, exactly. That go through little woods and stuff. The river, it was the River Don for me that come through. I lived in a place called Luke's Lane that was right on the border between Hebburn and Jarrow, and the border was basically, you know, defined mostly by that little stream that come through. And I go there now, and it's a beautiful little place. But when I was a kid, it was like something out, you know, The Simpsons, where they have the chemical stuff and all that, you know, the fish with three eyes and that. I wouldn't be surprised if it was more like that back then, but there was a danger attached to it, you know, and
yes,
all the daft games that you would play, but you'd always end up, somebody would end up in the Dean at some point during one of the games or whatever, you know. But yeah, it is weird. Oh, you've gone. Right. Sorry about that. There was a brief technical hiccup. If you knew the background to this, the technical hiccups have been going on for weeks on my end. So, but we'll continue now, and just trying to remember where we were. And Alfie told us he's told a brilliant anecdote, but there was nobody talking to him. So,
I remember you said, you asked a good question. You said, what would you suggest to change a game or to make something happen in a way that you wanted? But I wasn't usually the suggester. The suggester was a lad called Kevin Mangles, and we'd be happily playing.
What a name! What a name!
Oh, Kevin Mangles, still going. He's a children's entertainer in Thornley stuff, and he's done a million things. Kevin, he can make things happen because he's a suggester. And we would be playing, we'd be playing like 15-a-side footy and be playing for hours and enjoying it. And he just stopped and he picked the ball up and he goes, lads, we're not playing football anymore. We're playing murder ball. And that meant it was lawless, and you could just kick each other as much as you want and wrestle each other to the ground. And it just turned into like medieval football. But it was a good laugh. There was one thing we would have really, I think, oddball games, a couple of, in a smaller group, me, my mate Donald and Stephen and Dicker, we would invent our own spy clubs and go and, because we'd seen too many films and we'd watched things like The Man from U.N.C.L.E. and we'd invent, all right, in my mate's greenhouse, his dad's greenhouse, that was the HQ. And we'd give each other assignments, right? You've got to go and ask somebody at a bus stop where they're from. You've got to get their address. You've got to get their how many pets do they have, and all these facts. So you'd go. I mean, you were about 8 or something. You go up this fella must have gone. Aye, you come here often. Well, you most chances were you knew who they were because Crawley was tiny. And you go, are you going far? Well, the bus only went to one place, Durham. And then all right, and how many kids do you have? And then you go back and you write it up. Yeah, that was the cat club. I was spy club.
Like emailing the detectives, that kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Brilliant. But I'm just thinking, those sorts of games you were talking about when, you know, you're outside, if it was raining, and I mean, I don't know family-wise whether you had brothers or sisters, Alfie, or whether, you know, if you were indoors, let's say it was raining, you couldn't go out and your mates couldn't come in, or maybe one from next door or whatever could. What sort of things would you do in the house? I can probably guess, but
papier-mâché seemed to take up. That was a great time consumer, that, because it took blooming ages just to get some flour and a newspaper. And we all were a big newspaper family with the Daily Mirror, and you'd have heaps of them, and you just rip it up shred by shred, and you'd put it over a ball or something, and you would just take ages doing that. You never ended up finishing it ever. I spent a huge chunk of my childhood around my grandma's, and I used to live around there for an awful lot. She only lived a street away from me mum and dad's.
Yeah.
But she had a cupboard. I can remember where the cupboard was, near the kitchen sink, just to the right, and I would open it, and there was always an old disused bit of wallpaper, and that was my drawing pad. Yeah. And I would open it out, and I would just draw and draw and draw. And I used to draw comic book characters, and I used to draw superheroes. And I invented, as a kid, my own superhero league. So, and I would base it
All
exactly
right.
on like the football pools
Yeah,
grid,
yeah.
and I would do one week would be the Hulk versus Spider-Man. I'd write a match report. It was all like football, but
Yeah.
they would fight each other, and there would be unexpected results. And I would do a full season of superhero battles and who would finish top of the league. And I mean,
I
Batman shouldn't beat Superman on paper, but
no.
very occasionally he would.
Alfie they must have got a hold of them, Marvel and DC Comics, because they've actually started doing that, haven't they?
I know.
Basically.
I'm way ahead of my time. Way ahead of my time.
So did you have
Fully
any like
patented that.
did you have any favorite games or such that like board games or things like that, or did you watch much TV or listen to the radio or music and things like that?
Yeah. We were a massive radio family. My mum loved Radio 2 mainly, but local radio as well. So we knew the whole of the radio schedule. It would have been Jimmy Young and then Terry Wogan, Ray Moore, Terry Wogan, Jimmy Young. All thanks Terry Wogan there. And then I knew the whole schedule, and I watched so much television. It was I knew every day. I knew what was on a Thursday. It was Top of the Pops, Tom and Jerry, Star Trek. There were things you just never missed. I mean, I blow my kids. My kids just can't believe they can watch Boomerang and watch Tom and Jerry all day. I would say we had one episode of Tom and Jerry a week. And it's just so different now.
And you couldn't record it. You couldn't record it. You had to wait.
No. I remember people getting videos. We had a Betamax in the 80s, but before that, in the 70s, you watched, and there was a strange time where they put Laurel and Hardy on at midnight, and my dad would let me stay up to watch it. What the hell they were doing playing Laurel and Hardy at midnight? But I watched it. It was just, I loved Laurel and Hardy.
I wasn't allowed to stay up very late. But I do remember in the late 70s, and I think they kept repeating them. They had a thing on BBC Two around 6 o'clock where they would have Laurel and Hardy, and they'd play loads of Laurel and Hardy, and then they'd play Norman Wisdom movies, and they'd play George Formby, and then they would play Harold Lloyd, and they would be almost on a loop. And then they'd start again. And I absolutely loved that. That was brilliant.
As I remember it, there was a problem with the rights to the Laurel and Hardy films. And I think that's why they were shown ridiculously late at night. And then suddenly, I think Germany had the rights to them for a while. And then I think suddenly we got them. You're right. They just kept showing them around 6 o'clock. And I loved Norman Wisdom as well. And again, my dad was such a mine of information and all that. I got right into that. He didn't like Abbott and Costello. He used to say they're too daft to laugh at. But I like Abbott and Costello because they used to do, they extended their own franchise by doing all these films with horror figures of the day. So they did Abbott and Costello meet Frankenstein, Abbott and Costello meet Dracula. And I absolutely, this is another thing I did as a child and loved as a child that probably nobody else did. I started writing a book about Lon Chaney Jr., Lon Chaney Sr. I never finished it. But I went down to the library. I read all these books about them, about Vincent Price, Peter Cushing, Christopher Lee, but the old ones from the James Whale era, Boris Karloff, William Henry Pratt was his real name. I was fascinated by those early horror films.
You weren't the only one, because I used to do exactly the same.
There you go.
And I knew, I know, but I knew, and I think it was Abbott and Costello again that got me into it. But and I remember I remember family members talking about Vincent Price's voice and how his voice alone was so scary. And I went to the library and I would get books out about all the old horror movies, and I knew the plots and I knew all the different stories and pictures before I saw them. So when I would look out for them, and I still do, and I try and collect some of them now.
Yeah.
And,
do you know,
and it's fantastic.
I'm just looking for, I've got it here. there was this book in my library, and I thought I'm going to get that, and it's a frame
I
by
remember.
frame.
I
Yeah,
remember that.
so it was in my library, and when I grew up, I thought I've got to get that. I've got to get that, and there you go.
Oh, brilliant! I know exactly what you're talking about. I didn't write the stories, but I researched
Yeah,
and all.
yeah,
Yeah, it's
fascinating.
fascinating. Yeah, just brilliant. So as you got a little bit older, let's say, unless there's anything else you want to mention about when you were really young, but we're going to move on a little bit. What sort of time frame are we talking about when you get into your teens, Alfie?
Well, that's where things went a bit odd for me because I went away to train to be a priest when I was about
Yeah,
13 or 14. So I went to a mini Hogwarts for
yeah.
kids who wanted to be priests, and it was very much like the Billy Elliot thing. You know, my dad was a
Was
coal
that was
miner.
that was that Austin Friars or somewhere like that? Was it
No, but no, it was called Up Holland, and then
right,
and
right.
then I went to Usher College in Durham after that, and yeah, so it was
Sorry, yeah,
funny because it's where I became more interested in drama, more interested in acting, and pursuing lots of things, that just expanded on all the interests that I'd liked when I was really young, and I still
So
loved football and all those sort of
how did
things.
that happen when you were if you were training to be a priest? How did you get more into that sort of thing then?
Because we put on shows. We put on
Oh,
shows,
right.
and when I was at Peterlee, it was such a big comprehensive school. I wanted to be in plays and I wanted to act and all that, and nobody, you just didn't
Yeah,
stand a
yeah,
chance
yeah.
unless you were mega loud or mega brilliant or something. And I was just faded into the background like
Yeah,
wallpaper. And then suddenly, I think I was probably a bit of a novelty when I went away to train to be a priest because there was a few of us working class lads who'd gone away who your parish would pay for you.
yeah, yeah,
And so it was, yeah, it was a bit odd, I suppose, and you stood out a bit more. But I remember the first play I wanted to be in, and I could do all these impressions, and I went for the audition, and I tried for this part, that part, didn't get a part, and all the other lads couldn't believe it. They went, "You did every accent under the sun," and you know what? I went to every single rehearsal, even though I didn't get the part. I said, "Can I still come and watch people rehearse?" And they went, "Yep."
right.
And I went along, and then eventually somebody dropped out, and I got a
Yeah,
cameo role. I wouldn't give up. I was determined to be in that play.
yeah, yeah. I mean, that's brilliant doing that because you would have been learning from it at the same time as well as sort of
Yeah.
it's the kid who always turns up for the school team as a substitute and he's there every
Well,
week and doesn't get picked, but then one day somebody's missing and then all of a sudden you get
exactly.
your opportunity. So
I'm
yeah,
having this. I'm having this right now with my daughter. Is 9, and she goes to footy training every Thursday, and she hasn't been picked. She's tiny. She's like me. She's little. And I said we have to go every Saturday, even when you're not playing. We go
yeah,
every
yeah,
Saturday
yeah,
and we support the team. And one day somebody won't turn up, and they'll go,
yeah.
"You're on."
The best, I mean, all you have to tell her, the best footballers that I can think of were all little. And
Yes,
nearly
Beasley,
all of
Keegan.
them had
Yeah,
problems. Keegan,
yeah,
Messi,
yes, yeah,
yeah. There's loads of them, loads of them. Alan
yeah,
Ball, and
yeah,
you could go back years. Yeah, Huey Gallagher, even you see
yeah,
photos of
yeah,
him back in the 20s, tiny little
yeah,
fella. But yeah, yeah. But it's again, that's obviously something that she loves doing,
yeah.
and want
I'll
to
support
continue
it. I mean,
exactly.
whatever they're into, I'm supportive of. She loves drama as well now, so she's into that. So why
Yeah,
not? I'll
yeah.
I'll support it all.
So did you when you were away training
Mm.
for the priesthood, did you did did things change in terms of access to stuff? Did you have to make things up more? Do you know what I mean?
I,
Like did you have times where you couldn't watch the TV and things like that or couldn't
yeah.
listen to the radio and
Oh yeah, yeah. I missed out on a chunk of pop culture for a while. There was chunks of stuff that I missed,
yeah.
and didn't know about. Not that I missed a lot. You still watch telly and stuff like that, and I got everybody watching the snooker in 1985. And that wouldn't have been a sort of posh person thing, but they got into it. And I remember, this is funny. I went out and I was never, I'm coming from a family of gamblers, and they all were, I was running to the betting shop every 5 minutes, putting a bet on for me dad and for my uncles. And me mum, when I was off school sick, me mum would say, pick a horse, I'll put a bet on for you to cheer you up. And so I'd pick a horse. But I was never a gambler because I've never great with numbers. But I can remember that the 1986 final, the one after the Dennis Taylor final, I went to the betting shop out of school and put something like 10 pence on Joe Johnson. Nobody had heard of him.
Johnson,
no one had heard of him. And I put 10 pence on him. And he beat me. Dad was a good snooker player. And me dad, we used to play, I think, doubles with Dave Martin, who reached number 30 in the world. And Dave Martin lost in the first round against Joe Johnson. And I went, I love his cue actions, brilliant. So I went to the betting shop, and I became like some kind of soothsayer. Every round, this fella Joe Johnson is winning, and I've got this betting slip, and I'm going, look, it's Joe Johnson, and everyone's going, how did you know? Nobody's heard of this fella. Anyway, he gets to the final, and he's playing Steve Davis, and everybody knows Steve Davis now. He's like an angry wasp. He lost to Dennis Taylor. He's not going to lose 2 finals in a row. He's won everything that season. He's the best player in the world. And Joe Johnson hammered him. He played incredibly well. I think it was like 18-12. And every game's go by, they're going, how did you know? and that was it.
Because that's brilliant. But I remember Joe Johnson, it was almost as if he couldn't believe that he was there, and every game that he was winning, he was sitting down and going,
he's laughing,
he was laughing,
he's laughing,
smiling,
shaking his head,
But I think that helped him because he probably didn't have the nerves,
and he got the final the next year as well.
He did, that was the heyday. That was brilliant.
Snooker when they were kings, So that was another interest. That was another passion that I thought I would. I remember when I was again at Priest College, being massively into Frank Sinatra as a kid, and again as a young man. And a friend of mine who he was the secretary of the Shirley Bassey fan club in Bradford. And he was gay, not a surprise. And he said to me, he says, you will run out of steam on the Frank Sinatra thing. I thought I'd be as fanatical about Shirley Bassey till I died. And he said, it does wear off. And I thought that would be true of Frank Sinatra and of snooker and of cartoons. And it's not. I still look up a Frank Sinatra video or two a day on YouTube to see if there's any new stuff. I'm in all these different Facebook groups about Frank Sinatra, and the same with snooker. I watch probably more snooker now because there's more of it on Eurosport than I did when I was a kid. I love it.
Yeah, it is. I think it's very calming, isn't it? It's almost got like a Zen sort of feel to it. You can just relax and just, there's the tension, but it is, I think, it's almost like, it's like a different form of mindfulness almost, snooker, I think,
Absolutely. Me grandma, that's why in the 80s, old people loved it. Me grandma just had it on. I don't think she loved Hurricane Higgins. She loved his wild side. But I think it was that just calm and the quiet and the click of the balls and that hypnotic pace. And I'll be honest, they do this they've got a couple of tournaments where they do speeded up snooker and the crowd go wild. And it's not for me. It's not for me.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Because people used to go on about like Cliff Thorburn and people like that who were really slow. But they had that own sort of feel to it, didn't they? And it was interesting watching them looking at what shots they were going to play, and they'd go like this with their cue and thinking, and it was part of it, wasn't it? It was great.
Like chess, yeah.
Exactly. So, I'm kind of thinking you obviously didn't become a priest then. And
correct. Well,
so
very close. I nearly became a priest and then left to become a monk, or I joined a religious order. Just before I was ordained, I'd been very interested in this religious order that was in the same seminary, but they used to go and do outreach work in poor areas with poor kids and run like summer projects for them where kids had nothing. And I loved what they did. So, and I helped them on a couple of summer camps. Yes. And it was much healthier, really, in some ways, because it was in religious orders, you all live together in a mini monastery sort of thing, and you all, it's a bit more like a family. Whereas when I was just doing the diocesan priesthood is very lonely, and you might have a housekeeper, which is a bit weird, and then you're on your own in your presbytery, and it's just a bit dysfunctional. Whereas when you're all around the table, it's a bit more crack and a bit more like a family, and you'd all go out in the religious order. Maybe one of you would be a prison chaplain, one of you would be a school chaplain, and you'd all come back at the end of the day and say, "Oh, what have you done today? Oh, I did this, or I met that person." And you'd bring your stories back to the table, and you'd all cook for each other and shop for each other, and it was more, together like that.
It just sounds like lads together who do good things for people and then discuss and learn from each other's experiences and things like that. So it was, as soon as anybody mentioned, which is not often, if somebody mentions monasteries or monks or something like that, the first thing I think of is like the old sketches by Morecambe and Wise, and like the priesthood sort of sketches that Dave Allen used to do. And I mean, that you must have watched them and chuckled and thought, it's
loved Dave Allen, and I love. I can still remember clear as day 2 of his sketch. He did one sketch where he did the church on strike. The church went on strike, and outside the church there was coffins and people waiting to get married and all this, and it was just a funny idea, such a funny idea. And there was another one where he did. There was one where he did, and now songs of praise goes to the Trappist monastery in Surrey, and you're thinking Trappist monks don't speak, and they played Hallelujah, but the monks had it all written on cards. Hallelujah,
like Bob Dylan.
And another one was where they had a pope just gets made pope, or whatever the word is, ordained pope. And he's all solemnly coming down the aisle, and because he's just been pope, he does like a triple handstand, and it's just funny in a cassock.
I remember that one. Yeah, that's brilliant. So, when you were there, you obviously decided that you wanted to do something different. So, I mentioned a massive list of things that you're known for, Alfie. What was the thing that you decided, I'd rather do this, and that led you to leave, and that became your next sort of love as you were into adulthood?
Well, there was a key, two key things really. One was I'd been a school chaplain in Liverpool, and then I went to the monastery in Battersea, the religious house there, and I did a drama degree. Right. Because I was going to teach in one of the schools.
Right.
And I was going to teach drama. And so I went to drama college at Middlesex University. Didn't tell the other students that I was a monk, because I thought they'll go, here's the weirdo. So I honestly didn't tell them. And I got on great with them. Yeah. But it was getting more and more awkward after about 3 months. I was having to get back on the tube and go back to Battersea, and they'd all be going, "Come on, we're all going out. We're all going out." Yeah. And I'd become a really good mate to them, but I'm thinking I'm deceiving these here. But the second I tell them I'm a monk, they're just gonna
look
stop swearing or mind the P's and keep watch out. So And then after a while, I thought, I've got to tell him, I can't keep this up. So there was one of those lectures where one of the drama teachers said, right, I want you to tell everyone something nobody knows about you. So everybody's going around like, oh, I'm very good using a yo-yo. And it came to me, and I said, I'm a monk. And so, well, they put it on, no, seriously. And they're going, that makes sense. That's where you go every night. That's where you, and they couldn't, but you know what? They didn't stop swearing, and they didn't stop.
Off monking.
I was one of them.
If there's a verb, but yeah.
So
no, that's bizarre. That's bizarre, though.
It was the first university to do a course in stand-up comedy, and really? I did the course. Yeah, and it knocked me out. And on the same course, doing the same degree, was Alan Carr and Angelos Epithemou.
Oh,
you know Angelos of Shooting Stars?
Yes.
Well, Dan's one of my best mates.
Yeah.
So we lived together in Tottenham, and we all did stand up. Me, Alan, and Dan did stand up on the same night, the first time. Dan Skinner.
Yeah.
And we all did stand up for the first time on the same night, and I floated back to halls of residence, and I went, that's the best feeling I've ever. That's better than any drink, ecstatic feeling. That's just as good as it gets. And I'd written all the comedy myself, and I just thought that's what I wanted to. And I can remember telling one of the priests, I love this comedy, and he went, "You've made your mind up, haven't you?" And I went, I have.
Yeah.
But another thing that happened around the same time, I'd been a school chaplain in Liverpool, and a really good friend who's the drama teacher there, Stuart, he said, "Will you be my best man?" And I said, "Yeah." And Stu's uncle was Eddie Braben, who wrote Morecambe and Wise. He wrote every script for them, and there was a great drama with Stephen Tonkinson, and he wrote everything they did, apart from the musical numbers. He did all of the plays and all them funny bed scenes and all that couch scenes.
That series is brilliant. The one, it's called Eric, Ernie and Me, isn't it?
Oh, it's beautiful.
It's fantastic. I'll watch it again and again. It's one of those things that I have. There's a few things, programs or movies. If I'm feeling down or whatever, I'll put one of these things on. And that is one of my go-to things to watch. And it just, everything, all the stress, everything goes. And I watch that. I have a little tear. And
love it.
There's a bit, it's fantastic. Absolutely love it. But yeah.
Yes.
So what happened? What happened?
Well, Stu says to me, Uncle Eddie is going to be at the wedding. He said, "You're the best man." He said, and listen to this. He said, "Uncle Eddie doesn't laugh. He's not a laugher. Right. He's written for Morecambe and Wise. He's written for Ken Dodd. He writes for everyone. He's seen it all. He doesn't laugh. Don't let that put you off." Well, I says I'm going to make Eddie Braben laugh. It's now my mission. So I no longer was going to do a best man speech for Stuart and Jane. I was doing a best man speech for Eddie Braben, 100%. And I did it like it was a Morecambe and Wise mega sketch. It had songs, it had hats, wigs, impressions. I had a cassette with backing tracks. I did the whole thing. I did Best Man Speech, the musical. And it was like a 15-minute extravaganza. And I rehearsed it, and I took it dead serious. I mean, I wanted it to be good for Stuart and Jane. But I wanted to make Eddie Braben laugh. And Eddie Braben led a standing ovation and came over to me, because as you know from the programme, he was a Scouser. And he says, "Mate, what do you do?" And I said, I'm a monk. And he said, forget that, show business. And that was in there then. I went, Eddie Braben has told me I could do show business. And he took some photographs.
Yeah, that's brilliant.
You know, some weddings have a little, they leave Instamatic cameras around, and he took some pictures. And they sent them to me, and they were he caught me jumping up and dancing and all this sort of stuff. And I thought, wow, that knocked me out, and that wouldn't leave me head then.
Did no one record it? Did no one record it?
Yes.
Oh,
they recorded it, and I've never seen it. I've never seen it since.
Oh,
and
man.
It's bizarrely, today's February the 24th. It's their birthday today. Stu and Jane. They have the same birthday, and so I do keep in touch with them. But so that changed my life without question.
But that is, I'm just going to mention, because I know I've got a book on Eddie Braben, and he talks about Morecambe and Wise, and in that program with Stephen Tompkinson, when he's asked to work and write for Morecambe and Wise, he says, Morecambe and Wise, I wouldn't cross Stanley Park to see them. Yeah. Basically saying he didn't think they were very funny, but he turned them into Eric and Ernie. Basically, that's what he did. So
I've got that sign downstairs by him.
Oh, brilliant, man! Absolutely brilliant. So that was your affirmation, really, of what you wanted to do then.
Absolutely. So when people said to me, "Oh, you haven't got much ambition, you don't want to be on Live at the Apollo, and have I got news for you?" I'd way exceeded all of my dreams just by becoming a comedian. Then things would happen. I started doing warm-ups in Granada studios, and then I got the job on Radio Newcastle, and I never asked for any of these things. I never asked to be an ideal. One of the producers just said, "Will you audition for this part?" So things, because I do think if you work hard and you're nice to work with and you're just enthusiastic, things do come your way. That's certainly been the case for me. If you don't stop trying, it can happen.
I wondered if Graham Duff had seen you doing comedy or something and asked you, or maybe wrote the part for you or something like that.
No,
I haven't asked him.
I'll tell you exactly as I remember it. I knew. So for those who haven't seen it, Ideal's a sitcom set in the northwest of England. Johnny Vegas plays a drug dealer, and there's all these waifs and strays come to his flat.
It's a very low level drug dealer. Yes, if there's such a thing.
And it's all these silly scrapes he gets into, and all these crazy characters come round his house, and he's popular and he doesn't want to be, and he becomes this sort of nerve center for all these crackpots. And I played one of them, but I didn't go for that part. So I went for a part as a rat catcher who's only in one episode. And they said, "Would you?" I did that, and they said, "Will you audition for this part?" And it was the part of Derek, who was this drowsy allotment owner who was obsessed with his purple sprouting broccoli and all this sort of stuff. And now I knew Seymour Mace had already been cast. Now Seymour's a very funny Northeast actor, he's
brilliant.
He's great in it. And Seymour was so good. His character was killed off in the first series, and they brought him back as a twin in the next because they liked him so much. So I knew Seymour had been cast. Now I thought, Seymour's got a Northeast accent. They're not going to cast two Northeast actors in a Northwest-based comedy drama. So I'll do it as a Scouser, because I've lived in Liverpool. I loved gigging in Liverpool, and a lot of my friends are from there. So I thought, and also I had that script about purple sprouting broccoli, and Ted Dowd, who is one of the producers, said that was the line that sealed it when you said purple sprouting broccoli. He said it just sounded great, and that according to him was what sealed it for us. So purple sprouting broccoli.
I digress a little bit. I'm going to tell you something. Sorry. I don't know if you know. Seymour Mace was going to marry me and Sarah.
No.
Yeah, because
what happened?
Well, what happened was we were going to get married, and it was going to be Easter 2020. And we were actually going to we were thinking we were going to get married in the Stand Comedy Club. It was all arranged. And what we said was, we'll go to the registry office and we'll do all the stuff at the registry office, but then we'll come back to the Stand. And I asked Seymour if he would marry us, as like pretend to be, officiating
Yeah,
and
yeah,
actually marry us, and he agreed he was going to do it, and that was going to be his wedding present to us, kind of thing. Because I've
brilliant.
known Seymour for a long time, but he's
Yeah.
he's absolutely hilarious. But it never
Oh,
happened. We got married, but it was a few months later, and there was only like 9 members of our kids basically that were there,
yes.
and that was it,
Yeah, very intimate.
which was
Yeah.
nice. But the idea that we had, it would have been great, and unfortunately it didn't happen. But I mean, Seymour, anything could
Let
have
him renew
happened.
your vows.
That's a great idea. So we're in adulthood, and you're kind of finding your way with all of these various offers of jobs and new ventures and stuff. And let's maybe look a little bit further ahead. And I've just mentioned lockdown there. Are there any things that you've missed out in terms of adulthood that you absolutely loved? I mean, obviously you've become a dad and things like that. Things that changed for you in terms of the loves that you have, and then maybe getting into lockdown were the things that you sort of rekindled or tried anything new?
Well, yeah, massively with the art. I think lockdown, trapped in this very room, I ended up drawing much more than I normally would, and I just started drawing again when I was, again, complete accident, Davey. I was at a meeting, and I was hosting a conference, and I thought I'll draw some cartoons. I'd done this conference for a few years. I'd done impressions one year. I sang a song another year or something, and I just thought, I love this conference. I'll try and do something different each year I do it. So I drew a couple of cartoons, and from that, 2 strokes of luck. One bloke asked me if I had any pictures for his gallery, and I went, "Well, I haven't got any. I'm not an artist." He went, "Well, you better do some." And another fella asked me to draw a cartoon for a magazine. So when I agreed to do it, I didn't know it was the cover of the magazine.
Right.
So I would have said no, because I didn't think I was capable. And then when I was in the meeting, I'd said yes already. And that was it. I'd committed. So I'd become an artist by accident. I told you about how much I loved drawing as a kid, but I hardly drew again for about 30 years. And the odd cartoon era there, nothing more.
It's weird though, isn't it? It's weird how things that we love like that, we just stop doing. And you don't know why. There isn't a reason. You just do other things, and it's weird. So you started doing it again. Yeah,
I certainly have, and I'm loving it more than I've ever loved it. I'm regretting having given up, but I don't dwell on it. I just keep drawing and drawing and drawing, and I pretty much say yes to everything in the minute, as much as time allows. I'll show you this. This is the one I've drawn yesterday.
All right.
So someone on LinkedIn says to me, "Oh, as a woman wants someone to draw a cartoon, I've suggested you. Do you mind me introducing you and giving you the phone number?" So I went, yes. I'm knee deep in other stuff, but I just love a challenge and I can't say no. So she said, "Oh, I'd like a picture that incorporates office politics." So I went, okay, I could do that. Yeah, that sounds like a fairly basic cartoon. Few people in an office. Then when I agree to it, she says, "And could you make them animals? And could you make the animals maybe feel like they've come from Game of Thrones?" Don't ask me why. But I went, yes. So I start, and my imagination starts to go well, and there you go. So it's basically.
I saw that on Facebook yesterday, and it's brilliant.
So I really enjoyed drawing.
If it's okay with you, Alfie, when this is done, I'm going to edit it, and we'll maybe put some of your bits on at the end, if that's okay with you, just to show some of the people the examples of your work, because it's
use whatever you want. Use what you want. Thanks very much. I still feel new. I still feel like an imposter, and I still feel, where I know the people like Alex from Viz and Simon Donald, They're
Yeah,
qualified cartoonists, and I feel like a beginner with a pencil.
yeah, yeah. Alex is brilliant, isn't he?
Phenomenal.
Alex is, yeah,
He's
he's
he's he's
absolutely
just
brilliant.
ticks. He's just ticking off every one of his dreams. He's just, he did all them years on Viz, but
Yeah,
he didn't. He's now done Dennis the Menace, Danger Mouse, My Little Pony. What a resume! What
yeah,
a
yeah,
CV! Unbelievable.
yeah. It is. It's fantastic. But I'm gonna, I'm just gonna ask you one more thing, Alfie, before I'm
Yeah,
gonna do a couple of questions at the end. Is there anything that you haven't tried that you would think about trying in future? Anything that you
yeah,
think that you'd like to have a go at?
yes. Well, I'm learning French very slowly.
Right.
And I'd love to do something with that. I'm not sure what. And then I'm desperate to learn the 5-string banjo. I've got one downstairs. If you know anyone who's a teacher of the 5-string banjo, I'll pay them to teach me.
I
So
do.
there you
I
go. There's
do
a challenge
actually.
for your
I,
viewers.
yeah,
You do.
I do. Yeah.
Get them in touch with me. Get them in touch with
Well,
me. I'll
I played a little bit as well, but I'm kind
right.
of well, I play guitar. That's mainly what I
Yes.
do. But I kind of I'll say I had a banjo before it broke, and I just sort of make it up, and
Yeah.
I'm completely self taught. But
Wow.
I'm hoping to get one again
Mm.
sometime soon. And why
Yeah.
don't we get together and we can learn together? Maybe that would
Little
be a good.
jam.
That would
A
be,
little
yeah,
jam.
exactly,
Excellent.
exactly.
Excellent.
Foggy Mountain Breakdown or whatever it's
Yes, that's the one. I love it. Love it. Love a bit of
but
bluegrass.
yeah, brilliant, brilliant. But that's absolutely because that to me, it's like makes my heart sing when you mention learning an instrument, because that's the kind of
Yeah.
thing that's like me. That's what
Yeah.
I love probably more than
Big
anything.
challenge.
But yeah, this has been fantastic, Alfie. Absolutely brilliant, and I'm so grateful for you agreeing to do it. I'm going to finish
Loved it.
off, if that's okay, with a couple of quick questions, and
Yeah.
you can maybe answer in, if you want to, in two ways. I'm going to ask you, for example, first one, your favorite book. Now, you might have a favorite book that you loved as a kid, and maybe another one that you've loved as you got older. Any ideas of that?
That's a great question. I think I'll pick. I collect certain books, and there's certain books that I have gone back to and read and reread about my favorite subjects.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And I like motivational books. I like books about Frank Sinatra, Woody Allen, a lot of my favorite subjects. But I think I'll pick. There's an artist called Al Hirschfeld, and
Right.
he's my favorite cartoonist. And when I show you his pictures, you'll know. Here he is. So he used to draw 1940s, 50s, 60s, 70s. He drew till he was 100, and he drew
Right.
cartoons of Hollywood stars.
Oh, yes, yes, yes. I
You
know.
recognise
Yeah,
his style's been copied to death, and I
yeah.
just love him. Look at the detail there,
The
and you can
one
see,
I think Robert Mitchum's the one I always
yeah.
remember.
And
That was just genius, that one.
he hardly, there's his Woody Allen there. He hardly
Oh,
uses
yeah,
any lines, but you know
yeah,
who it is straight away. It's
yeah.
so good. So I just look at his books over and over again. I never get sick, and he inspires me.
Yeah. Isn't it weird though how I recognise the style, but I couldn't remember the name?
Well,
You
because
know?
even Bugs Bunny uses a bit of Hirschfeld in the background. The genie in Aladdin is the
Yeah,
Hirschfeld
yeah,
style.
yeah, yeah, yeah. No, that's brilliant. What about films, Alfie? What
Oh,
sort of, you mentioned a couple of
oh,
programs, but what about films? I
yeah.
mean, I could go on all day about films,
Well,
but
all right. If I have to pick one, and again,
I'll
I
let you
love
pick one from
Casablanca.
I'll let you pick one from when you were younger, and then another
Yeah.
one, so, or whatever,
All
you
right.
know.
Well, I'll go Lauren Hardy Music Box, getting the
Oh
piano up
yeah,
the stairs.
yeah,
I think it's a work of art. Anywhere you look
is.
at that, it's a triumph. It's unbelievable. It's incredibly edited. It's incredibly funny. It's the stunts, everything about it's just perfect.
Yeah.
And I think they're only Oscar nominated film, or it
Yeah.
might have won for best short.
Yeah.
And I think newer film, and one I'm going to pick. Planes, Trains, and Automobiles.
Yeah.
Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. I love Steve Martin. I absolutely love Steve Martin. Still think, again, there's a genius. There is a fella who, you know, people talk about Leonardo da Vinci, or they talk about, Michelangelo. Steve Martin is incredible on the banjo. He's written a Broadway musical. He's written movies. He played stadiums as a comedian. And I think he's underrated. He's a family actor. People always said, oh, he became rubbish. Well, that meant he appealed to more people. But I love everything about Steve Martin and everything he's done.
He did a thing playing the banjo on, I've got my Jack White t-shirt on, and Jack White and T. Burn Burnett and Robert Redford produced a series of programs about the beginnings of American music in the 1920s and 30s. And the name of it's gone out of my head. It's, you know, when it's there and it pops. But it's called American Epic, and they have 3 programs where they talk about where they had these massive, big, huge recording systems that they took from place to place around America to capture the different styles of music, because unless you lived in those areas, you had Cajun music in Louisiana, you had country music, obviously, in the South, you had, you know, the big band music was the thing that was getting played a lot. That was kind of accepted. You had Hawaiian music, you had music from like Spanish influence. There's loads and loads of different styles. There's Native American music. There's all sorts of things. And they went around and they tell the stories, like, for example, of how the Carter family, how they started. They turned up in a jalopy. They went, I don't know, it was about 20 miles they drove on these broken roads. And one of the 2 women was pregnant at the time. They went and did a recording. And that was the beginning of the Carter family, which basically started off country music and all of it. Honestly, it's fantastic.
Love all that.
But then the very last program, what they do is they've recreated, Jack White's got a studio where they recreate the room with the one mic in the middle, and everybody has to come and record in the room. And there's a light comes on when they're ready, and it cuts the record as they're actually recording. But they have to, they kind of produce the music before they record it, because the guy in the booth can hear in his headphones. So it depends on how far away you are from the mic as to how much of that sound of that instrument is going to be played. And I thought about it because Steve Martin plays banjo on one of the tracks, and it's absolutely fantastic. It's brilliant. But you've got Jack White does it. Elton John's there as well.
Wow.
There's
American Epic.
It's called American Epic. Honestly, look out for it. It is absolutely brilliant. It's fun. You will love it. I know you will.
Be on YouTube. I'll check it out.
It probably will be, but it's on. I think it's BBC. It might be on the iPlayer.
iPlayer,
yeah. But it's well worth a watch.
Seek it down.
This is the thing when you're talking to someone, it's a conversation. I'm terrible. I go off.
That's the best sort of conversation.
But you just pick, and we actually watched Steve Martin last night. Sorry, I'd never seen it. Little Shop of Horrors.
Oh, great! I'll be your dentist.
The dentist. He's fantastic. And it's weird because he's got jet black hair.
I know.
You know, and you're like, that's Steve Martin. Yeah, he was. I'll go along with that film. It's a one. I think anybody who hasn't seen it, it's fantastic. And Laurel and Hardy, my favorite. I think I love the Music Box, but I think my favorite, because it's a bit different, was A Chump at Oxford.
Oh, fantastic, fantastic. And
It's just,
but Stan
it's
Laurel
genius.
does some pantomime in that. Just in the maze, isn't it? And he's just
Yeah, yeah,
incredible.
yeah. And
And
then he
there's some
completely
great jokes in
changes.
it.
It's brilliant, brilliant.
We've done
And
the three W's: reading, writing, and figuring.
that's right.
Jokes.
And he has the globe, and they've just gone to Oxford from
Yeah,
America,
yeah,
and he goes, we're only that far from home."
yeah.
He looks at the
Beautiful.
globe. Just little daft little things.
Yeah.
So another little question: did you have a favorite toy, or was it?
I suppose always drawn stuff, always
I
a
was
pen
just
and
going to
paper would
say,
do
I
me.
bet you pen.
But
I
I've
knew
still
you were
got
going to say that.
me daughter's got me Billy Bean Dog, which is a cuddly toy. I bought a second-hand cuddly toy from a jumble sale, and me daughter still got it.
Your dog that you had from when you were little.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Oh, brilliant! That's fun. Billy Bean.
But hang on, stay there.
Go on then. Billy Bean.
There you go. Billy Bean Dog. Hey.
Oh, that's
So
fantastic.
there's hardly any stuffing left.
No, I'm not surprised you kept him. That's fantastic. So did you name him, or was he named for you?
No, I think I named him. I think I bought it for 10 pence and
Oh,
kept it
brilliant.
ever since.
That's fantastic. One quick one. Oh no, I've got two. And I think I know who you're going to. I think I'm going to guess. I'm not going to guess, but everybody could probably guess. If anybody alive or dead that you would love to have met or would love to meet, who would it be?
Oh yeah, Sinatra.
I
Sinatra.
knew, yeah.
He's enigmatic. He's dangerous. He's just unbelievable in so many ways. And again, in show business, he did everything that there was to be done. You know, at the highest level. Unbelievable.
Did you ever get to see him?
Yeah, 1990.
Oh,
Took me dad. And it was the best memory, you know, outside the family stuff, having children, getting married. It was, I still remember so much about it. It was from the first thing he said. It was the day, I think Stephen Edberg.
Where did you go? Where did you see him?
London Arena. It was his only performance in the round in this country.
Right.
And we got tickets. It was a year after he'd done the ultimate event with Liza Minnelli and Sammy Davis Jr. And I still wish I had seen him in a theatre like the Albert Hall, but still, seeing him full stop was great. And I took me dad. My dad loved him, and my dad cried all the way through. And he came on stage. It had been the Wimbledon final that day in 1990, and it was the same night the three tenors sang for the first time in the World Cup in 1990, Italian 90. And he came on stage with an old broken wooden tennis racket, and he went like that, and he goes, "I whooped them all." Brilliant.
I love that you said that about your dad. I love that you said that about your dad, because I'm like that now. And we went to see Echo and the Bunnymen just recently, just last week. And I mean, they're one of my favorites. And I was the same. Yeah. I was in tears at the end. They played a couple of songs, and I was just, it's just when something's so perfect, your emotions just take over. And I'm not embarrassed about that, you know, the way that some people might be. And I just think, no, it's those things that make life.
I'm like that with a repair
living,
shop. I'm like that with a repair shop every night. The kids watch me watching the repair shop and just, you don't know. He's fixed something.
I know. Well, I'm the same with the pottery show. You know, Keith on the pottery show, he cries. I'm exactly the same. I'm crying before he is.
Nothing wrong with that.
But it's about the people doing things that they love, which is what this is about. And they put their heart and soul into it. And you can see, you know, things like that. You know, maybe when I was younger in my teens, I would have laughed at myself now and thought, oh, you soft sod, or something like that. But no, I think as you get that little bit older, you realise And as you know, I don't know if you know, but the reason why I called this "It Doesn't Really Matter, But It Does" is from the line from the movie that me and Sarah were in recently. We Are the Geordies, um,
Ah,
which which is obviously you're a Sunderland fan, Alfie. So I don't know whether you've seen it or not, but there's a bit at the
yes.
end of the film. There's a bit at the end of the film, and I was asked about whether everything, what was important. I said, well, we've already been promoted, and that is the key. That's the key thing. Newcastle United have just been promoted in the last game. This is the icing on the cake sort of thing. I said, and then we, at the very, very end, the way that it's filmed, James and Z, they basically have edited it in a way where there was a game that was continuing as Newcastle's game had finished, and we won our last game, but Aston Villa were playing Brighton, I think it was, who were above us in the league, and Jack Grealish scored. There was 7 or 8 minutes of injury time in that game, so we were all around the pitch waiting to hear what was happening, and then Jack Grealish scores, and there's a roar that just starts with one person that gets it on the phone, and there's a ripple that goes all the way around the stadium. And we saw it as a premiere in the pictures, and the sound just goes all around you, and it's fantastic. And at that moment, James was filming me, and he said, "Davey," he says, "What do you think? What do you think about this moment? We're now going up as champions." And I turned around and I said, "It doesn't really matter." And I turned back again. I said, "But it does."
It does.
And the
Brilliant.
idea of it, and that line's been taken, when I get recognized, and people always say it doesn't really matter, but it does, and things like that. But the idea that I've looked at that, and it was the key for me wanting to do this, to look at positive things. It's about things in life that on the surface don't seem that important, but they really are crucially important, because life is not just about getting up, going to work, coming back, going to bed, eating and getting up, going to work. You know what I mean? Some people, unfortunately,
Absolutely.
that's their lives, but it's about finding those little things that make life, I call them little moments of euphoria, that you want to search for. And
Crucial.
I find them in football and music and other things. And you've just discussed about about your loves, and it's been absolutely fantastic, Alfie.
I've loved it.
It's great talking to you anyway. If there's anything, if you were told, right, you can only continue with one thing that you love, what would it be?
It would be all of them. I suppose
it's kind of negative in a way, saying that you're going to take all of them away, but yeah.
No,
it's just saying which one do you love the most. Yeah.
The most at the minute, I'm most excited about the drone, because it's something it's the newest thing. So hopefully, and also I think hopefully it's something I can carry on doing. Nobody stays on the radio forever. Nobody stays on the stand-up stage forever. Well, I think you can draw pictures in kids' books.
Yeah.
Roald Dahl, you can't remember Roald Dahl as a young man. You can only remember him as an old bloke in a shed, writing kids' books. So I hope that's what I can do as I get older, and just get a shed in the garden and just sitting there drawing. Love it.
That's fantastic, Alfie. It's been absolutely brilliant. A pleasure as always talking to you, and we could go on and on and on, but
we'll do it again.
Cut it short. We will do. We'll talk again, and hopefully, maybe go for a coffee or something, and we'll get the banjos out when I get me.
Let's have a jam. Let's have a jam.
Brilliant, Alfie. Thank you very much.
Fab.
All the best.
Cheers, mate. Thanks, Davey.
Cheers.
Excellent.